Hey friends, welcome to Jen Sense Used Fragrance Emporium, where every fragrance smells like a hotel room that charges by the hour. You want a fragrance that's gonna make your ex-wife cry into her boxed wine while your cousin slides into your DMs? I got you covered, brother. Or your second cousin, right? That's not much better. But these babies are so strong, they'll knock the panties off a mannequin at 30 feet. They spray harder than your uncle at your family reunion. These fragrances are a restraining order waiting to happen. What was that? Ooh, that's weird. Today we're talking cheap fragrances, but not just any cheap fragrances. Cheap fragrances you can wear 365 days a year. Ignore that intro. I do not know what that was. All the fragrances I talked to you guys about today are linked in the description below, so feel free to check them out down there. We're starting off with Mango Ice. This one is done by Gulf Orchid, and in case you're unaware of Gulf Orchid, they are a clone house. Actually, the first one I smelled by them that blew me away was Sweet Heaven Cherry, which is kind of like Comra with like a cherry twist. This one is the scent du jour, the scent of the day, which is God of Fire, because there are a lot of God of Fire alternatives out there at this point. This is one. And this is absolutely one of the best. This is right up there toward the tippy top, and that's because it has a nice balance of the mango and the woody aspects. Now, of course, it does say Mango Ice, so it does have more of that. It leans a little bit further in that direction, but it is nicely balanced, which keeps it extremely easy to wear through spring, summer, fall, even winter. Very pleasant, sweet, attention-grabbing, big compliment puller, nice performance, very low price for high quality, and you just can't go wrong with something that costs next to nothing. But you don't have to buy it used, so that's good. Now this next one, you may think, that's not really that cheap, but you can find it for 50 bucks at discounters. It's Lunar Rosa Ocean by Prada. Now this is the eau de toilette. If you wanted to go for like the eau de parfum, that's gonna be a little bit more. If you wanted to go for the Le Parfum, I would say that's not as good for a year-round fragrance. Maybe you should rethink that, but if you really like it, yeah, go ahead. Lunar Rosa Ocean, very easy to wear in typical blue fragrance fashion, and also in typical Prada fashion. A little bit classy, slightly soapy, but nicely balanced with sweetness and freshness in kind of equal parts. You have lavender, iris sage, pink pepper, bergamot, and musk in the scent. Performance is about average, but that works out really well for your time use because you can spray more or less depending on where you're going, what you're doing. And yeah, just under 50 bucks, which to me, for a big designer brand like Prada, pretty cheap. Technically, I think as of this video, it's $49.99, so yeah. But still, that's under 50. Technically. Now let's say you are shopping for this fragrance or any other, you can use these codes to save yourself extra money. You don't even have to shop at a used fragrance emporium to get a good deal. Although you still technically could do that. You just don't know what's inside those bottles though. You know what I'm saying? So I've got a ton of codes. Gift Express 15% off, massive discounter, and that is a big discount to mark those down even further, any of the fragrances there. 15% off also at Intense Oud. There is 5% off at Maple Prime, which also includes free shipping, and then the fantastic stores of the Perfume Box, Fragflex, and JOMASHOP, along with Max Aroma. Codes for all of them. So when you shop at any of those stores, use those codes, save yourself a little extra money. We move on to the next fragrance, which has to be Ralph's Club. Now this is one I've brought up a bunch, and that's because for this size bottle, 50 ml, you can find it for about $30, and that is a sick deal. Fantastic. It smells vaguely similar to like the Y line, which is kind of making sense to my brain noodle because the perfumer, who is the same person, did both of them. I'm pretty sure the intro of the video just carried over and ate a hole into my brain. Dominique Ropion did this fragrance as well as the Y line of fragrances, so I'm saying it makes sense that they would have some similarities. It's the same person. This one though is more aromatic. It is not quite as sweet. You could say it's a little bit more gentle manly, but it still retains that same versatility, that compliment factor, everything else. And for the price point, about 30 bucks again, and sometimes actually less. I've seen it for 25 for a 50 ml, which for this fragrance, this presentation, this scent profile, everything else at that price point, nuts. That is just a sick deal, I gotta say it. Call a doctor, these prices are sick. Rayhan is up next. This one is called Imperia Rayhan. Now Imperia is, as you may have guessed, a clone of Aventus. Imperia Aventus? close enough. Another one that is extremely affordable. You do not have to pay much at all to get your grubby little hands on this one. It's got a nice, fresh, bright opening, a little bit green, sweet, fresh. Has that Aventus style DNA to it, which of course works whenever you want. Daytime, evening, any season. Also a huge compliment puller. It is one that you may want to let sit and macerate for a couple of weeks, which will help it open up a little bit more, because it did smell better to me after sitting for a little bit. So be aware of that. But for the price point, $15.99, pretty much the cheapest you can get. I mean, think about that. That's sub 20 bucks. Like, blah. If you have ever found yourself for some reason looking at Club de Nuit, Intense Man, or L'Aventure, and you looked at those price points and thought to yourself, I cannot justify this purchase, it is too much, then there you go. $15.99. Let's go with Pepe Jeans up next. This one is London Calling. And I pretty much always point this out, but I'll point it out once again. Pepe Jeans, for the price point that you can get most of the fragrances for, are actually great purchases. They are all inexpensive. The presentations, all things considered, not that bad. Got this like little shaker cup design. I mean, it looks a little like Rabanne-esque, right? It looks like something Paco Rabanne or Carolina Herrera might do, but it is way cheaper than a Rabanne or a Herrera. So this one is about 30 bucks at discounters. That's the price point you're probably gonna find it at least as of this video. You can also usually find Celebrate or the original Pepe Jeans or some of the newer flankers that have come out after this one as well. So they've got a few different ones that you can choose from. Note breakdown is pretty interesting. There's plum off the top along with chutney, lemon, lavender, clary sage, vanilla, and nutmeg. The performance is actually pretty good, better than you would expect for a $30 Pepe Jeans. And it is vaguely reminiscent of something like Stronger With You Intensely, but with more of that fruity sweetness off the top and not quite as deep. Maybe a little bit more sugary, but it has a nice little fresh pop as well. And you can potentially pull that off year round. I know it's not what you would think of as a typical summertime scent, but it can work. Next up, Hooked Azure by Rue Broca, which is part of Afnan, kind of like how Maison Alhambra is part of Lattafa and French Avenue is part of Fragrance World. So the bottle itself, a little bit unassuming. They threw like a little bow tie on there, kind of reminiscent of Mr. Burberry or something like that. But when you spray this dude on, you kind of know right away what it's doing. Really sweet, fresh, lively, almost like energetic, brisk, carbonated sweetness, like carbonated sugar water. It sounded better in my head than it sounds saying out loud. It's basically just soda, right? Sugar water? It doesn't smell like soda. It is a little bit in that Invictus style, that Invictus family, although obviously leaning more toward something like Invictus Acqua, something that is more sparkly, not as heavy, not as dense. You could also say, you know, a little bit in the style of like Nitro Red, as a nice sweet lavender, a little bit of woodiness as it dries down. Super easy to wear pretty much anywhere and dirt cheap. This next one's really good for the price. Ferragamo Bright Leather. Ferragamo is a brand that under the radar, kind of low key, releases fragrances that have good quality, a lot of times really nice presentations, at prices that end up being on the very low end of the designer spectrum once they hit discounters. And this is no different. You can find it for about 40 bucks. Looks really nice, looks high end, has this kind of like faux leather strap or strip that runs from the front of the bottle up to the top of the cap. The scent itself does indeed have leather, and it could remind you of a long discontinued fragrance from Christian Dior, Acqua Fahrenheit, which is a scent that I own 2 bottles of because I really liked it, which means everything here is gonna be discontinued. It's the kiss of death, for sure. So in terms of notes, it has a lot of citrus off the top, grapefruit, orange, bergamot. You have a smooth leather as it dries down. White leather technically is the note in the fragrance. Rosemary, basil, musk, cedar, and patchouli. A nice balance of fresh, sweet, masculine, and the type of scent that you could pull off year-round pretty easily. Now the next one is very obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean it's not true. It is Explorer by Montblanc. So yeah, I guess that's the second fragrance now that's kind of got Aventus similarities to it. Explorer used to be a little bit cheaper at discounters. It still is cheap, otherwise it wouldn't be in this video, but it used to be cheaper. I guess to be fair though, you can say that about just about everything, so not really a Montblanc issue. That's an everything in existence issue. So yeah, Aventus-y in style, fresh, spicy, off the top with pink pepper and bergamot. People love it as well. It's ultra easy to wear, a big compliment puller. One of the easiest here to be worn year-round, any day, any situation. And they have announced, as of this video, a new Explorer, Explorer Extreme, which I do not have just yet, at least as of right here when I'm standing here right this minute right now. French Avenue is next, and this one is called Arsh Extrate. This is kind of in the style of L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé by Guerlain, which is discontinued. Very strange thing they're doing over there at Guerlain, at least with the L'Homme Ideal line. Now in terms of coloration, this is closer to L'Homme Ideal Cologne, which smelled great and was available at discounters for like 25 bucks. It was an amazing deal. Discontinued, unfortunately. And then years later, they came out with L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé, which smelled really similar to L'Homme Ideal Cologne. And then they discontinued that one. I guess the moral of the story is anything that smells similar to L'Homme Ideal Cologne gets discontinued. And yet I love the way it smells. And I know a lot of you out there do too as well. So go figure. Anyway though, this is gonna get you similar to L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé. It's not the exact same. The woodiness doesn't hit quite the exact same way, but it does have a similar kind of creamy, smooth citrus. It's fairly elegant, so it does have this capability to be worn in more formal situations in like spring or summer, should you so choose. And I will say it is another one that gets better with age, like a fine wine or a cheap clone fragrance. But yeah, like what I said over here with Imperia, same deal with Arsh. Those ones are ones that you need to spray, and if you sniff and you say, I don't love, then what you do is you say, try harder, sit it to the side, leave it for a while, come back, spray again, see how it is. And if you hate it at that point, just throw it as hard as you can at a window. So don't do that. Up next is Scalpers Boxing Club, which you may say, I don't really want to smell like a boxing club. How would a boxing club smell? Well, I don't know, sweat, blood, MRSA, and ringworm. Yeah, that's actually a really terrible note breakdown. But good for us. It doesn't smell like a boxing club at all. That's just the name. Funny how that happens with every single release. The name doesn't mean anything, is what I mean. So Boxing Club, how does it smell? Well, a little bit similar to CH Men by Carolina Herrera, which is a fragrance that works extremely well. Great compliment puller, very versatile, but a little bit more expensive. This one you can find for about 20 bucks. In terms of the notes, you have cardamom in here along with rhubarb, bergamot, iris, violet, tonka, and vetiver. So I know looking at that note breakdown, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. That's pretty different. Yes and no. Again, kind of similar to CH Men, so it's not that earth-shattering, even though the note breakdown looks pretty interesting. What it is, though, is a little bit aromatic, sweet, and again, extremely easy to pull off for 20 bucks. You can't go wrong with that. Even if you hate it, you're out 20 bucks. Armaf is up next, and this one is Odyssey Spectra. So this is Ultramall. This is Armaf's Ultramall. That is another fragrance that is extremely popular. There are a bunch of different alternatives out there to it. The Odyssey line constantly getting new releases. They actually just came out with 2 more new ones. So yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's gonna pass Club de Nuit, just as far as how many they have out there, I mean. And this is one that becomes addictive. It's got a little bit of that bubblegummy feel to it, that bubblegummy sweetness that Ultramall has, but this has more of a warmth to it. So it is sweet, it is fresh, it is a little bubblegummy, but the cinnamon in here is kind of like moved up a little bit in the composition. You also have that vanilla, that tobacco working in underneath. To me, it doesn't come across too powdery or anything either. Performance is good, it lasts a long time, it projects well, which is what you want from an Ultramall alternative, because that one's really strong. Just really top-notch stuff, very well done, especially if you like Ultramall. Now one for the gentleman out there, Lalique White, which this has some similarities to Parfums de Marly's Galloway, which is obviously much more expensive because Lalique being Lalique, at discounters, this is cheap. Lalique being Lalique, this is cheap. That kind of almost has a little ring to it. Lemon leaf, bergamot, tamarind, white pepper, nutmeg, cardamom, cedar, musk, and oak moss. Some of the notes that you're gonna find in the fragrance. It's not a really loud fragrance. You know, it doesn't scream, it doesn't screech. It's just pretty smooth, elegant, refined, and inexpensive. It does lean more summertime, springtime, just as far as how the fragrance comes across, and that is gonna be because of the performance. If it were louder, more people would think of it like, oh yeah, fall and winter, really nice. But like I said before, you wanna wear that during fall and winter, you wear it. Just spray it on a little bit more, good to go. Something like that, you can wear it. Ferragamo again, this is Acqua Essenziale Blue. So we're dipping our toes back into the blue fragrance genre here with this one. Very affordable, of course, otherwise it wouldn't be in today's video. And it is done by Alberto Marias. Now, one thing with this fragrance, if you knew nothing about it, you would see the name, see the color, and think to yourself, okay, it's gonna be like a straight out of the shower fragrance, right? Real clean, soapy maybe, shower gel. And not really. No, there's citrus in here. There is, off the top, it is fresh. Lemon, bergamot, but you also have cardamom in there. So right away, it's got this little bit of like a warmth and an underlying sweetness, a warm spiciness right off the top. You do have that typical masculine lavender in here, so there is a little cleanliness, a little clean aspect. But then as it dries down, you have tonka in there, you have benzoin, you've got patchouli. And so it takes on this slightly richer scent profile than you might expect when you first pick this up. And that also helps it when it's cold outside. So it becomes a great anytime fragrance, daytime, evening, any season. Got a Lattafa next. This one is Caprice. Technically, Anashama Caprice is the full name, but if you just look up Caprice, like Lattafa Caprice, this will pull up. So this one, obviously a clone, once again, but it's a clone of a fragrance that in the US is pretty hard to find. La Nuit de l'Homme Bleu Electrique, which very odd, that one. Came out and basically was gone from store shelves like 2 months later, which sucks because it was like my favorite La Nuit flanker probably since Frozen Cologne, which also discontinued, by the way. Telling you, kiss of death. So it's got that La Nuit de l'Homme aspect to it, that La Nuit de l'Homme scent profile, that kind of cardamom that grabs your attention as soon as you spray it on. That's really what Bleu Electrique had off the top that grabbed attention, but it was done in a way that was like blue fragrance centric. So taking La Nuit de l'Homme and twisting it up and then turning it into a blue fragrance, but still maintaining what made La Nuit de l'Homme La Nuit de l'Homme. That's what it was, which made it fantastic for anytime use. It had that compliment factor. It actually smelled decently unique as well. I know the comparison to the original La Nuit, of course, but with the twist that it had, it was like a really interesting way of approaching it. And some people could say, no, that's boring, but to me, having something like that where they're like, let's reinvent La Nuit de l'Homme into an anytime fragrance was interesting. More interesting than a flanker that's like, hey, look, here's the eau de parfum, and now here's the parfum, and now here's the absolute, and there's like a 10% difference between each one. Yes, a difference, but at the same time, La Nuit Bleu Electrique was more interesting, at least in that aspect for me. So this is one of your best bets at getting something on the cheap that smells like Bleu Electrique. And we're gonna finish with Bois de Vetiver from Karl Lagerfeld. A lot of Lagerfeld fragrances are crazy cheap. So you can pick them up for next to nothing pretty much across everything that they've released. And some of them are surprisingly really solid. This one I like quite a lot. So obviously it is a vetiver. I know a lot of people out there are scared of vetiver forward fragrances, but this is a really fresh vetiver. It is a little dry, the way the woodiness comes across. So it does have that going on, like kind of a dry but fresh and zingy vetiver with citrus. You also have rose and ambroxan in here. It's a little bit similar to Cartier's Declaration, but I would say between the two, this one comes across smelling a little bit more modern, a little bit brighter, a little easier to pull off for more people. Performance is so-so, but it is cheap. So again, you can spray more or less depending on where you're going, what you're doing. And there you have it, 15 different fragrances, all of these really cheap, assuming you shop at discounters and not at full retail. And you can wear these pretty much whenever you want. They'll get the job done. And most of these are huge compliment pullers as well. A lot of them are just like the best of the best as far as bang for buck. They've got performance, high quality, Great versatility and cost next to nothing. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.